do you think there's a difference between being a real estate agent and being an entrepreneur? When I first started my management company, for my first 2 years, I made no money. I lost money, and I lost a lot of money.
The longest I can remember, I've always tried. Obviously, we're not perfect, but I've always tried to stick to a healthy routine in all aspects. When it comes to your physical body, when it comes to feeding your mind or learning something new, everything.
As a young Marine, we were forced to take a financial class, which for me was the biggest uh, um, plus, and it's really what shaped me uh, going on. Welcome back, my beautiful people. All right, today we're going to be talking about building success in real estate and beyond with my good friend Brian Morillo. Uh, Without further ado, Brian, tell us who you are and what you're about.
Uh, hey everyone, thank you so much for inviting me, Fernando. It's a pleasure to be here in your platform. I'm Brian Morillo. I'm a local real estate agent here in South Florida. I've been doing real estate, it's crazy to say, but almost a decade. Because I feel that I'm still young in the game, 31 years old. I've done over a little over 400 transactions, and I'm about to close 100 millions in volume in my career, which is one of the big accomplishments that I'm looking forward to it. So I coach agents throughout the market of South Florida. I'm on social media all over the place. And what else? Yeah, happy to be here and share with you whatever is helpful and valuable to your audience.
Phenomenal, phenomenal. I met Brian. It's been almost 2 years now, right, Brian?
About 2 years. Yeah,
Yep, yep.
feels
Very,
longer.
very impressed when I met him. I right off the bat, I knew he was going to be a superstar in the industry, and I'm glad that his career is skyrocketing. So, congrats on that. Congrats on
Thank
your.
you.
Is it? Did you accomplish it yet, or you're close
No,
to
no,
it?
I'm tracking the number. I'm about to. I'm about to.
Nice. Good for you. Good for you. So tell us how you got started in real estate. What inspired you? Why did you pursue this specific career?
I started back in 2015. I'm originally from the Dominican Republic. I was born in New York, but I was raised in the Dominican Republic. Uh, I don't even know why my parents they had the idea to move to New York. I guess they were scared of the they got scared of the weather and then came back to the Dominican Republic where they're from. So I was raised my entire life in the DR until 2015 that I moved here to South Florida to Florida because I met my now wife. We did a 4 years long distance relationship, and then I moved here. So the transition was easy because obviously I was already a citizen, so it just mattered to move here. So when I came here, I had to do something. I had to work, and I got a job in a call center. I had experience in that for a few months, and then after a couple months in the call center, they gather all the floor and tell them, "Hey guys, we basically made a mistake. We hired too soon, and now we have to let everybody go." I used to sell, I think, insurance or customer service for insurance, and that is per season. You only get insurance a certain amount of time of the year, so they hire a group of people for a certain amount of the year. So imagine that getting to the country, the land of opportunities. I get to start in a job and excited, and then you have to be let go. I was frustrated, and then one night, talking to my wife, she brings the idea of, "Why don't you start real estate?" Back then, we always been good with our money. She had a job, and her job paid for the household expenses. So she was like, "I think if we're gonna start something, entrepreneurship, I think this is a good time that we have everything covered. My salary pays for everything. Why don't you start real estate?" And I was like, "Yeah, that's a good idea." So I got my license, passed the test, got my license, started doing it. 2015. That's when I started.
Very, very nice. Now, your wife was the one that inspired you to get into the industry, but and I want you to talk about this because I know in the past we've had discussions on what I'm about to ask you. and that is, can you do you think there's a difference between being a real estate agent and being an entrepreneur? And if
Mm.
not, explain that, and if yes, explain what the differences are.
I mean, I think the easiest way to understand is people need to understand. I mean, if you read the book, the cash flow quadrant from Robert C. Kiyosaki, that you have the employee, the self-employed, the business owner, and you have the investor. People need to realize that if you are an employee, you work a 9 to 5 for a company, a corporation, for a salary. If you then transition and get your license, immediately you get to be a self-employed, meaning that you are your business. The business and any sales depend and rely completely on you. Most of us real estate agents, we call it, but we have a real estate business. But if you don't have leverage, if you don't have a staff, if you don't have systems, if you don't have something working by itself that doesn't rely and depend on you to grow and to sustain, then you cannot call it a business. You're self-employed. And in my opinion, it's you find yourself a job, still a job. You need to dedicate time to be able to make the income. So that is the first thing that people need to understand, and I try to every agent that I coach to make them realize that once you have certain amount of business, constant business, then we try to structure it in a way that you can grow it and sustain it by itself, and that's when you can call it a business. So I think that's the difference when you want to call yourself entrepreneur or real estate agent. Definitely, if you jump into real estate, you're an entrepreneur. You're starting something by yourself, but you're still self-employed. You got yourself a job that you get to manage your time. But the reality is, we get to work more times than if I were to be in a 9 to 5.
Yeah,
Does that make sense?
that it makes sense, and that's a great answer. Because I agree. I think number one, I think there is a difference between an entrepreneur and someone that's self-employed. And I'm glad you brought up the cash flow quadrant, because I think a lot of successful entrepreneurs at some point read that book, just like Rich
Yeah.
Dad Poor Dad, right? Um, and I think one of the biggest mistakes a lot of people make is when they want to go out on their own and start a business, uh, they forget that, or they want to wear all hats, right?
Hmm.
And in a business, you can't, because you spend a lot of time working in it instead of on it, right? And
Correct.
so to any business, and the way I look at it is from this perspective. If at some point I want to sell my business, if I am if I am the face, if I am the employee, I am the owner,
Yeah.
I can't sell that.
Hmm.
You could only
Yeah.
sell something that's transferable to someone,
Mm.
and something that someone can pick up and
Hmm.
just take over right away, right?
Hmm.
By doing what you
Correct.
did,
Yes.
hiring, establishing processes and procedures, that allows your business to run with or without you. And that, I think that's a big important.
Correct.
That's very important. So
If you can package it and sell it, if he has a value, that's when you can tell that it's a business. That's a great way to identify it.
yeah, awesome. Yeah. So uh, on that same topic, though, tell me what were your biggest challenges when you first started in real estate, and you were learning how to establish these processes and procedures.
That's a great question. There were many challenges. So 2015, I get my license. Well, not everything just was a success since then. I got to join one of the biggest companies. They give me a lot of training. So for 4 years, I've been doing this. I told you almost 10 years. For the first 4 years, it was purely a struggle. Now I was hungry to learn. So what I used to do is get myself into read all the real estate books, get myself in all the trainings possible, learn from other agents, do open houses. I tried a little bit of everything: cold calling, expires, Facebooks, all the sources. Got try to get myself on. I also show properties for other agents. Some other agents that had so many buyers that they couldn't show all the properties. I used to show them properties, and that gave me a lot of practice too. So I was hungry to learn, but I wasn't producing enough business myself. So back in 20, at the end of 2018, I was about to quit real estate because I was getting so frustrated. I wasn't getting the results, and I don't know if people realize this, but 80% of the people that get their license, they quit by the second year in the industry. And it doesn't surprise me because if you don't know how to do this, what we're talking about, and structure a business, a constant business, you're gonna get frustrated. You get a deal today, you're super happy, but then next month is not guaranteed. So it happened to me. Now, in my case, I'm like, man, I gave these 4 years and I'm barely making a living here, you know? So I got frustrated, got in a depression, like sometimes we get, and I was literally about to quit. I started working in another uh, business, trying to develop another business, and I was ready to exit the industry. And that's when my wife had a second conversation with me, and she was like, Brian, you think you gave real estate a try? I know that you can do better. So that motivated me, and then I came back with a business plan and a strategy. So for 2019, I set up a goal of doing 72 open houses for the entire year. So after trying a little bit of everything, I realized that the face-to-face interaction was the theme for me, and I liked open houses, and I was like, I'm gonna do this big time. So I set up 72 open houses for the year. I didn't even have listings. So what I used to do is borrow listings from other agents in my office. Hey, can I do an open house at your property? Sometimes I used to call people on the MLS, other agents, randomly. Hey, can I borrow your listing? And I even develop a script on how to call them because some of them they're like, who are you? Some of them like my team already does open houses. So I tell them, hey, look, it's a win to win. It's a win-win situation. It helped me expose myself to leads and also expose your listing to buyers. I used to look for vacant properties and hold them. So I did 72 for the year. Obviously, when you produce that amount of action, then it creates this momentum and bring business. So I got business from it. But at that point, I got to connect with this investor that he used to flip properties and list the properties himself. So I got to connect with him. He borrowed the house to me to host an open house. Then the next weekend, I wanted to do another open house. I went on the MLS and found another listing of his. And I'm like, hey, I was the one that hosted an open house for that other house for you. Do you want me to host another one for this? So I connected with him. We built a relationship. It got to a point that every time that he flipped a property, he called me and asked me if I wanted to host an open house. So that's what I was doing. So I made myself available those weekends to make sure that I provided that value for him. So it got to a point that he was getting too busy on the investment side and flipping properties that he didn't even have time to list it and sell it himself. So guess who was the first person that he thought about and contact when he wanted to hire an agent and replace himself? He called me and offered me the position. He's like, "Hey, I want you to. You've been putting the work, and I want you to list all the properties for me." And I'm like, "Okay, sure. How many listings are you gonna give me on a yearly base? 5, 10?" He's like, "No, we're actually doing anywhere between 35 to 40 listings in a year." So imagine that the average agents closed 4 deals in a year. It was one client was gonna give me 35, 40. So obviously, we partnered up and that changed the trajectory of my business too because it wasn't only the houses. I had all these listings. The way that I saw it back then is like I had now more houses that I can hold opens to, and I can get buyers to those houses. Back then, him being an investor, he wasn't interested in putting yard signs because those are buyer leads and he wasn't interested in that. So I started putting yard signs in all these properties. So it created all this momentum where I doubled that production just by those listings. So that was a breakthrough for sure.
Now, so there's a couple of things you said that I'm going to touch on, but real quick, what from that breakthrough? Give me one or two lessons that you learned from that breakthrough.
That's a great question. I mean, the first one is you have to put in the work,
Yes.
and what I mean by that is you have to be in the arena. It got to a point that I noticed that he was a good connection. I even invited him. I remember we didn't even knew each other in person, but I remember inviting him. Hey, do you want to grab coffee? He was too busy. He wasn't like, oh, I can. But I'm like, this guy's flipping properties, and this is a good connection. Um, and sometimes he called me, do you want to host an open house this Saturday? If I had something in my schedule, I moved it because I wanted to make sure that I was available for him. Why? Because he was the one providing the houses for me. Beautiful houses. Imagine fully renovated, vacant houses that can help me accomplish my goal. So you have to be in the arena. You have to put in the work for free most of the time and not expect anything in exchange. It's come from contribution, add value to others, and then later on that's gonna translate into business. So that's the first lesson. Like right now, I'm the one that have listings, and sometimes I don't find agents. I made my listings available for other agents to do open houses, and some weekends I'm like, hey, agents, you guys want to do open houses? Nobody show up. I'm
Wow.
like, back then that was my thing. That was a blessing for me to be able to have a house. But that is the perspective. Like a lot of people, they don't have the hunger, they don't have the commitment to put in the work, especially when you don't have a tangible, immediate result or something to get right away. So that was the first lesson, and I've always treated it like that in my business. You have to put in the work, you have to be in the arena and put yourself in front of people for the opportunity to come to you.
Yeah,
So,
opportunities breed opportunities, and you just mentioned something that is key, and I just saw a video on it, and it's you mentioned being hungry, right?
yeah.
There's my wife sent me this, I think it was TikTok or Instagram video on a coach. He's a D1 division coach, and
Mm,
he was talking about how he wants to recruit kids that are hungry, right?
mm,
And there's kids today or people today that when they want to eat, when they get hungry, they'll go and get whatever off the cupboard, right? There
yeah.
are those kids, or they'll wait for their parents to make them the meal, or they're not out there hunting, right? But then you
Yeah.
have those
Yeah.
other kids that are hunting, right? They'll
Mm,
go out
mm-hmm.
there and turn over every stone to get that one piece of meal. They'll,
Mm-hmm.
if they have to practice, they're not being asked to practice. They're there. They're like, when is
Mm-hmm.
practice? Other kids are like,
Yes.
hey, we're gonna practice 9 to 6. Okay, I'll be there. But these other kids, the ones that are truly hungry, they're asking for the practice. They're not only going
Mm,
to the practice, but if there's not one, they're making the practice up, right?
yes.
So,
Yes.
uh, uh, and I'm glad you touched on that. And that was a key point in your career, is the fact that when your wife asked you, did you really put in the effort? Uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
at least you were honest enough to say, you're right. I really, not that you have to ask it, but you really didn't give it your all.
Yes, I was putting the time, but I wasn't necessarily putting the effort.
There you
There's a
go.
difference. And that's another big misconception too. Just because don't confuse movement for achievement. Just because you are in the office doesn't mean that you're being productive. And that's a one of the top mistakes that most agents I see do all the time.
Yeah, it's what we
Investor, everybody.
it's what we
Yeah,
refer to as busy time, right? You're
yeah,
you're
yeah.
make you're doing something, but is that something productive toward, and is that something getting you closer towards your goal, right?
Yeah.
So like give us two things, or two or three things that you feel were productive things for you in your career.
Productive. The first one is that I've always I've always, and this is something that I don't know if I want to say that I was born with, but I at least identify very early in my life, and is the importance and the benefits of building relationships and taking advantage of them. Just to make a quick story, that I was talking to my wife the other day, that now as an adult I get to process that and how early I was, I guess, smart enough to understand that concept. Back when I was school in the DR, as a kid, I made friends. I had a lot of friends, and everybody was my friend. But a couple of my best friends, they were actually very good connections that helped me throughout my life. Just to give you an example, one of my best friends in school, his dad was a general in the army in the DR, and but it's like it's not one of those things that you intentional as a kid, because sometimes you don't even process
Yeah,
that, but you're like, okay, he's a good friend but also a very good connection that can help you with stuff. Imagine that a general is not only that he was well off, his family was well off, but they have power. Like, he had drivers in his house, military armed drivers that take him anywhere he wanted. He had servers, like all these things. So he became a very good friend, and through his mom that know me, she got me jobs, summer jobs, and things like that. My one of my very first jobs in the DR was at a bank, and it was through that relationship. So if I go back in time, I can pinpoint relationships that I've intentionally saw the value, and I make sure that I'm in their atmosphere and try to provide some sort of value. And obviously, being genuine is not fake.
right.
They were still genuine friendships, but at the same time, friendships that I know that somehow could benefit at some point in the future. So that is one for sure. The same thing with this investor. We're very good friends now. I had it in my podcast. We hang out sometimes. We go on boats. You might see us because he's a young guy like myself, and you're like, okay, somebody that doesn't know this story might think, obviously Brian is their listing agent and work with them. They're friends. No, it didn't start as a
No,
friendship.
yeah.
You know, like, if they don't know the story that I told you, like, no, it started as a business relationship and then it converted into a friendship. So that's one thing. Make sure to put yourself in the room where you can learn or take advantage of a connection.
Yeah, two things there, right? It's and always I've always said this, and I learned this early on as well. People do business with people they know and trust. So you need to
Mm-hmm.
be out there in front of these people, get to know them, so that and they can and earn their trust, right? This is why I'm a big fan of social media, because social media gives you the opportunity to put yourself out there in front
Yes.
of a lot of people. You know,
Yes.
a lot of my leads, a lot of my clients have come through social media. My number one lead source is social media. Um,
Yep.
Back in the day, like you, I did a lot of networking events, like personally going to networking. Unfortunately, today
Yes.
I don't have the time to do that. Um, but it's one of the things that I learned, right? Because relationships are key in any business, and
Yes.
you're a prime
Now, you
example.
know, yeah, you mentioned networking, and that's exactly how I used to do. I try to be in those rooms some way, somehow. And to your point, if with social media, frequency equals familiarity,
Yeah,
and that's what social media allows you. The more frequent you are in social media, posting content some way, somehow, and value content preferably, it's just a matter of top of mind. Our brains are only capable to remember certain amount of information. If I ask you, name me five electrician, you probably can come up with one or two. You might know more, uh, but your brain only can retain two and can come up with two on the spot. Probably those two are the last two that you spoke with or that they used in. The same thing with five real estate agents, five investors. Literally, sometimes, like, oh, name five real estate agents in Texas. I know through Elite Builders and a Red Network a lot of agents in Texas, but I can probably come up with three or four. The more
right.
that those three or four that I see the most on social media, it's just natural. So it's frequency.
No, no, no. I agree with that, and I wanted to go back on something you mentioned early on, and that is not giving up early, because I think a lot
Mm.
of especially real estate agents, they give up way too early. People in business in general will give up way too early. I've told my story thousand times, but I'll repeat it. When I first started my management company, for my first 2 years, I made no money. I lost
Mm.
money,
Wow.
and I lost a
Yeah.
lot of
Yeah.
money. But I stuck with it because, and the other
Mm-hmm.
reason why I stuck with it, which was very similar to your case, was because back then I was still full time in my W-2 job. So I really,
Mm-hmm.
when I sat back and because like you, there was times I'm like, I'm gonna quit this, right? Uh,
Yes. Yes.
and but I realized, just like you, because I self-analyzed and I had the ability to recognize that, man, I am not putting the effort that it takes
Mm.
to grow $1 million business. I
Mm.
truly wasn't doing
Yes.
that. It's only until I
Mm-hmm.
went full time and my only focus was my management company is when my company blew
Mm-hmm.
up. And I think that's
Mm-hmm.
another mistake that a lot of young entrepreneurs make, is that they're always chasing that shiny object, right?
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
always going to be something new, right? But
But
go ahead.
let me ask you, now that you mentioned that, in your case, I'm curious. What do you think it is? What qualities do you maybe you think that you possess that makes you stick to something even when you don't see the results?
Well, if you ask my wife, she'll probably say it's my ego, right? I don't want
Haha.
to
Yeah.
fail, right? But
Yeah.
but for me, it's more of, I see something, and I have countless stories, but I s- I have when I have a vision of something, I,
Yeah.
I pretty I'm pretty sure I can accomplish that, right? And it may take
Yeah.
me longer than others, but I know that if I stick
Mm-hmm.
with it, I'll do it. It's my ability. Number one, I hate to lose. I'm a very
Mm-hmm.
sore
Haha.
loser. So when
Mm-hmm.
I start something, I am going to do everything in my power to make sure I can accomplish that. Now, again, it may
Yeah.
take me longer than others, um, but I'm going to get there. But that's to answer your question. That's it. I hate to lose, um,
Yeah.
and and then the other thing is, like I just mentioned, um, I don't get distracted by other things like, what's new. I
Yeah.
I stay single focused. So that
You mentioned you mentioned, and sorry that I stay in this, but I think it's very important and necessary. You mentioned at the beginning, like knowing yourself, that you have that quality that you get to know yourself. And it's something that I've also, in the last, I don't know, recent years, I'm being more intentional on knowing myself too. There's this great book, it's called Strength Finder, and you take a test, and he has like 40 different qualities that people possess, and he give you the top five strength. The premises of the book is, it says that as kids, when you go to school, we're programmed to think that, you know, you go to school, if if you're good at at English but not so good at math, put some focus on math so you can kind of level it up, right? And be kind of like the best that you can be at both. The premises of the book is like, no, you got it wrong. Whatever you're very good at, focus on that, develop the skill, because at the end, the marketplace, when you become an adult, rewards you, um, for that unique value proposition. If you're good at math, focus on math, because probably you're gonna end up in a career that has to do with math. And if you become the greatest at math, obviously you're gonna get rewarded by that. So two of my big strengths, that the book says that I have, is focus and significance. And you kind of mentioned, a lot of things that you mentioned are similar to that. You even use the word focused. That if I said I'm gonna stick to this, I'm gonna do social media, it's like you don't you nothing else will distract you. You will shut down all the noise, and that's me. And that's a superpower. It could be also, it doesn't serve us sometimes because we don't have we also could be very stubborn of not recognizing when we have to let go of something, or where our energy and efforts might be better used somewhere else. But when we said this is where we're going, we've seen other people succeed, There's a track record, there's a proof. We're going there, and nothing else will distract us. So focus it once. And you said also significance. That's what your maybe your wife is recognizing. It says ego. Well, we all have one. I have one too. And for the longest time, when you talk to me, oh, it's significant. Significant is like, oh, it's caring about what other people think, and also wanting to prove yourself and proving others. Well, there's nothing wrong with that too, especially if you use it for the right reasons. So the need for me to prove myself and prove others is so big that that's another quality and strength that allows me to stick to something for the longest time. It's like I'm not gonna quit until I prove that I'm successful. So it goes right along with what you just said about knowing yourself. It's a powerful skill.
It's extremely powerful, and just like anything in life, right? There's pros and cons. Um, I am like I mentioned, I am sometimes focused to a point of obsession, uh,
Hmm.
and there's going to be things in your life that are going to suffer as a result of that obsession of you trying to achieve something, right? Um,
Yeah,
and listen, I'll be the first one to admit, in my life, my relationship with my family has suffered because of my obsession. Right
yeah,
now,
yeah,
uh, there's always going to be that give and take. But I always say this, man, and as bad as this is going to sound, um, the greats all have always been obsessed and have always something in their life has suffered as a result of that.
yeah,
One of the
hundred
one that
percent.
comes to mind right away is Tom Brady. Tom Brady
Mm.
was
Yep.
so obsessed with his football career
Yeah.
that during the season he would tell his family they had to leave the house because he didn't want
Wow.
distractions. I mean, obviously he's divorced now, and as he's divorced because of that obsession. Uh,
Yeah.
his
Yeah.
wife just said, "Hey, I had enough." But I'm fortunate that I have a wife and a partner in my life that although she hates it,
Yeah.
she
He
understands.
understands it and accepts it. Yeah. That's powerful. And it's true. When you say yes to one thing, you're saying no to another. As long as you have the awareness, and as long as you make your significant other, your circle, understand that this is something that you want to pursue, I think it's powerful to get to understand that.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
so true.
So let's switch focus a little bit and let's talk because we're kind of on there now. Let's talk about mindset, right? What key habits or mindset shift that you feel contributed to your success?
Mindset. I think it has to do with habits, and the right mindset. It has a very direct correlation with your habits. Whatever you do on a daily basis, on a constant basis, to keep yourself in a positive way, it has to do with that. For the longest I can remember, I've always tried. Obviously, we're not perfect, but I've always tried to stick to a healthy routine in all aspects. When it comes to your physical body, when it comes to feeding your mind or learning something new, everything. For example, working out. For as long as I can remember, I've always performed some sort of workouts. Uh, and that's always incorporated in my routines. There are seasons where I stop that I don't find the way back to the gym, but it happens. As long as you understand that is part of you, uh, you're always gonna come back to it. Also, reading. It's like learning as much as possible, understanding that you're not alone in this world and you can learn from other people's mistakes. The more you get to read, the more you get to interact with other people, the more you get to identify that you're not the only one going through something, and the more grace you give to yourself. Let's say that I'm frustrated in my marriage, and I'm literally going, let's say that right now I'm literally going through that process where I'm fighting with my wife because she thinks that I'm obsessed. But right now, having this conversation with you, I heard that you're going through the same thing. It's like, man, so I'm not the only one. And then I give myself the grace and the peace to, okay, I'm not the only one. I'm not unique. I'm not just the problem in the world, if that makes sense. So That's another big one too. I'm constantly feeding my mind with information, constantly engaging in conversation, constantly trying to learn from others and also learn from myself, understand myself. All of that together, I don't know. It's hard to pinpoint one piece that can uh, help me with mindset. Well, being surrounded with positive people too. Sometimes we are even forced to be surrounded with people that are not family and friends. If they're not positive, they're not contributing, if you know that they're not helping you, but you have to keep their relationship because they're family, uh, well, make sure that you're aware of the amount of time that you spend with them. All of that is it's awareness. It's awareness for sure.
That definitely there's I have a very small, extremely small group of
Yeah.
close friends.
Yeah.
And I don't spend a lot of time with families. I've already mentioned, because I believe you're right. And I think it's, the older I get, the more I realize that people like to do two things. They like to be negative and they like to complain. And I can't
Yeah.
stand being around negative people or people that complain. I am generally I'm a very upbeat, positive, maybe over positive person.
Yeah.
Some may say, but I think that's hugely important, man. It is and here's the interesting part, and I'll say this again: people that are extremely successful, and like you, I've read a lot of books. They have one thing in common, that a lot of people thought they were crazy, thought
Mm.
that they should give up on what they were doing. Um,
Mm-hmm.
they and usually it's
Lonely. They feel lonely.
lonely, exactly, and it's usually the worst are their immediate family. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
they're the first ones to go out there and say, "Ah, you're dumb for doing that," or "You're crazy for doing that." It takes a strong individual to block out that noise. I'll give you another
Yeah.
quick story. I The property that I live in Florida. When I bought that property, I'm not a single person, not a
Mm.
single one, including the person that sold it to me, kept telling me, "Are you sure you want to buy this? Are you sure you want to buy this?"
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm like, "No, I do." And it has been, especially financially, one of the best decisions I've made in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Mm-hmm.
think back and I tell myself, "Thank God I listened to no one when I bought this." Uh,
Yes, yes, 100%. And it's funny because at but that's at the first part. Once the success show off, then people switch and it's like, oh, they some of them they understand and they start believing and trusting in your previous decisions. Some others uh, they accept it, and some others say that you were lucky,
right,
whatever it is, but they see the good end result. And right now, I'm in the process to putting together a trust with my wife. And if you have done it, you have to go through the process of picking an executor, the benefits,
right.
and a lot of stuff. Who are going to be responsible of your assets and your kids if you have any after you pass away. So it's an interesting process because you have to think about who are those relationships, key relationships, family or friends that you can trust, literally trust, to do all these things. Manage wealth, manage your assets, to take care of you if you're incapacitated. Who has the capability to making those difficult decisions? And for us, me and my wife, if I'm honest with you, it was extra difficult because we are the ones, she in her family and I in my side of the family too, who people rely on. We're not usually the ones that we're not the ones that have people that we're usually the ones that people rely on. It's like if all of them were to do the same process, they probably us will be the ones that they write down in the paper right away that comes to mind. But when it's on our turn, we have to really think strategically. Who are those people that we can trust for those things? You know?
That's interesting because I haven't thought about that, but I'm now that you mention it, I've been thinking about it. As you're going on, And I got to tell you, it'll be very difficult for me. Like I know two people that I could 1,000% trust with my assets. One
Yeah.
being my wife, and then the other being
Hmm.
my brother Richard. But the problem is, my wife and my brother Richard, they're we're the same age. So you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
if I have to go younger, man, I don't know. Even my own son, I don't trust with my assets.
Yeah, yeah, I know, I know. It's difficult, and sometimes there's people that you're very close by, but it's like, okay, they're super nice, they're my brother, family, whatever it is, but they don't handle. Their track record shows that they're not good with management money. Some others, they're like, I'm in a situation where I'm incapacitated, and they have to make a difficult decision of pull the plug. They don't have the emotional intelligence to handle that decision, and you have to literally go through one by one, and most of the time the list is short when you are the one in your family that is capable of a lot of these things. So it's an interesting process, but it puts me to think. First of all, and that was my wife. She said, because there was one person, a good friend of ours, that came to mind with when it came to the paperwork, when it came to executor as an executor of the trust, and we were like, man, now that we think about it, we gotta value more of that
Oh
relationship.
yeah,
Because look how this person is the one that comes to mind with a lot of these things that we trust. It's like we have to value more of that relationship. Because it's not the one that you have the best time and you have a good laugh when you have a drink. It's the one that is gonna be there making the good decisions where you're not there.
no,
It's
hundred
interesting.
percent, and I 100% agree with you. Is recognizing who those people are and really, really, really put in effort to show them how much they mean to you, and what their value is to you. You know what I mean? So
Yes.
um, let let's on this mindset theme here. Let me ask you one last question on this. Um, what do you what was your biggest failure or setback that you believe really shaped you as an entrepreneur?
Failures. Let's see. Failures and setbacks.
Did I lose you?
I would say one, not understanding the value of quality coaching. Um, that's one. When it comes to my real estate career, at least, not understanding that I've always like, oh, I want to try to figure it out this by myself, and you can you can go fast by yourself, but you cannot go far only with yourself. So not understanding that, if I were to understand the value of quality coaching early in my career, I would have avoided a lot of headaches and also uh, have the success that maybe I have now in a much sooner time. That's one. Because as soon as I hire a coach, and obviously that's how we connected, Aaron changed the trajectory of my business. He helped me build systems and see things differently when it comes to real estate, since he went through it himself. Um, and that shifted completely. It's not only that helped me grow my business more, but also free up time, which is ultimately the value. Uh, what else? That's definitely one. Quality coaching. Um, man, the resilience in the amount of action, it's always been there. I've always put in the work. I can say that, put in the time and not being afraid of it. But that's the only one. That's the first one that comes to mind for sure.
Yeah, and I'm gonna second that. I believe quality coaching or mentorship is key for not only entrepreneurs, but for even, I always tell people the following. Even the greats had coaches. Tom Brady had a coach.
Yeah,
Uh, Tiger Wood has a coach. Um, so for those people, and you hit the nail right on the head when you said you can move quickly, but you're not going to move as quickly if you had that coach, right? You'll be
yeah,
able to
hundred
get there
percent.
quicker and faster with the right mentorship and or the right coach. So
Yes.
And then I'm going to add to that because you've quoted several books multiple times. I firmly believe that reading is fundamental. Right? You heard that in
Yes.
elementary school, but it is true even as we get older. And more importantly, if you are thinking about starting a business or you are running a business, uh, reading will help you tremendously. And constant learning is it's pivotal.
Yes.
You really, really need to never stop learning. And
Yeah.
one of the ways that I do that is through reading, and based on this conversation, you're the same way. So that's good.
Yes. 100%. And I've never, people see and might think, oh, you were born like that. No. I remember the days where I didn't like to read, like majority of people. I think the average American read one book, I've heard, after they graduate school in their entire life. Imagine that, only one book.
Yeah.
I'm at a pace right now that I read 15 to 20 books every year, at least. That's without counting maybe the podcasts and the events and the conferences and any other information that I feed my mind with. But you have to build a habit. I started, this is how I trick my brain, at least how I work. It's like you got to start reading with something that you like, even if it's fiction, just whatever that you feel that your brain can catch quick and stick to it. And then that's how you build a habit into having a physical book or listening. Start like building the habit with something that you like, and then little by little transition with something that can help you grow and help you understand or learn something new. So that's how I do it. I also do physical books. I do audio books. I started reading one book at a time because I only can focus. But now I'm reading 3 and 4 books at the same time. Like it's a development process that you got to start slowly and give yourself the time and the grace.
No, I think that's hugely important. And since we're on the topic, what inspired you to get into coaching?
Um, Coaching. I feel that if I'm honest with you and myself, it's purely passion. I don't. I because of the way that I'm developing my business and growing my business, I'm surrounding myself with a lot of agents. And even though I like to teach, I'm realizing that it's more than teaching. I like to help. And if you're hungry, if you're willing and able, I'm gonna be there, and I'm gonna give you a lot of value. So I don't. I've come to realize, and I had to learn the right way. Not everybody deserves the amount of time, the same amount of time from you. So it's passion. That's at least for me, and because I'm constantly learning, and it goes back to what we were talking about earlier of feeling lonely sometimes when you're not when you are in your season, when you're having your momentum, and you're in your path, and you look around and not many people are going the same way. As soon as you find somebody that wants to follow that path, that is hungry, it's just natural. It's like, I want to share with you. I try all these things. This is what worked. I want to share with you. I want to give you the information. I even myself have come across people. I have, just to give you an example, a very good friend of mine that he is a life coach for highly successful people. We're talking about Olympian athletes. He even coached past presidents. He was the number one coach for Tony Robbins' organization. He's a very good friend of mine. And every time that I talk to him and meet with him, he tells me, how can I help you? Like, ask. And whatever you want, whatever, I'm open for you for free. And I know that it comes to because he understands that one, I don't have the relationship just out of how does it call, out of like a benefit, but also like he sees that I'm hungry and that I'm hungry for information. I'm hungry for learning, and there's a lot of people. You'd be surprised the amount of people that are willing to help you if you're putting the work and you have the the hungerness.
Yeah, no, 100%, 100%. Since you've been coaching, and you're strictly coaching real estate agents, am I correct?
So yeah, as far as coaching real estate agents right now, yes. So through my brokerage EXP, I can bring agents to the company, and what I do is I coach them for free. I have weekly group calls that I offer. So I created these coaching products. Anybody that wants to plug in the coaching and is not part of the brokerage, I sell those coaching products and you can join. But that's why I was telling you that the coaching part, I'm still in production. I'm still working real estate. That's one of my main focus is my own clients, buyers and sellers, investors. And then on the side, and do coaching to other agents through these weekly calls and these coaching products that it originally started with my agents, anybody that wants to join my organization, because through my platform, I get to benefit a little bit of their production. So obviously, I want them to do well, but then I'm like, okay, some people might feel comfortable in their company, so I'm gonna sell these products. If you find value in it and you want to join, but you don't want to switch in brokerage necessarily, you come. That's how I see coaching. Because something that I've come to realize, even from other firms that are coaching, and this is just me thinking future. I don't know if you see it the same way. Being a coach, you're still trading time for money, and it's not my end goal. Like, if thinking myself 5 to 10 years from now, I want to be completely free. I don't want to be attached to a schedule. Oh, I have these coaching calls, these coaching clients. And the tendency is, at least in the industry, in the real estate industry, if you're successful in real estate, then get into coaching and train others and get paid by that. But it's replacing your time, one thing with the other. That's how I see it. And there's nothing wrong if you have the passion, the heart for it. Great. I still I still have the energy, the passion to do it right now. But I'm making sure that I don't set it in a way that it will be the thing for me in the future. It's the thing right now. But in the future, I want to build agents and grow them so they can go out by themselves. I'm here if they need me. But I want to. If we go back to the quadrum, I want to. I once was an employee. I once were self-employed. I'm now transitioning to a business owner, but eventually I want to be an investor. I want to have equity so I can be completely free and not depend on a schedule, not depend on anything else. So that's like thinking long term.
Well, you answered one of the questions that I was going to ask you down the road, but I want to stick with that because I think what you just said is gold, right? I am I'm a little older than you. Been in the business a little longer than you, so I'm in that position now, and where I just look from the
So
investment.
you understand, yeah?
Yeah, from that investment standpoint, I fully understand where you want to be. I agree with you on the coaching aspect that you're training time for money. Um, I do coaching, but I do more of consulting. But the reason why I do it, it's not to generate more money, but it's for me. It helps me stay sharp. And I use a lot of people don't know this, but I own a CrossFit gym, and I used to be a CrossFit coach. And
Yes.
prior to that, early on in my younger days, I competed very competitively in endurance sports. When I got to old, or I started to lose a step or two there, I started coaching. But I coached because I understood that the skill of, like, for example, running. It's something that a lot of people don't have, and it allowed me because it allowed me to stay sharp with my skills because I was coaching it and I was teaching it, which allowed me to still be competitive even though I was slower, but I was more efficient when
Yeah.
running, so I can run longer than most because I had
Yes.
better skill set. So now in my property management and short term rental business, I coach and consult because it allows me to stay sharp in that industry that is
Yes.
constantly changing.
Yes. But it's,
So
it's still a choice. You
it's
know what I mean? It's a choice
right,
because you're thinking long term. It's a business strategy right now. It's not a
exactly.
dependency.
It,
Yes.
exactly. So
I mean, I know your story. Obviously, we have conversations. We have the podcast together. So you and I'm very curious on when you maybe realize that. But you are an investor. You think like an investor, and you understand that freedom comes through ownership,
correct.
and you own. You own real estate, a big portfolio. You own companies, multiple companies in different industries. That's what give you freedom, because it give you the revenue share, the cash flow. So that's my end goal, and I'm learning obviously from guys like you that that's why you're able to travel the world on your own time, your own terms, and that's the part that a lot of entrepreneurs don't understand now. Uh, and sometimes it takes time to understand it. I feel that I'm blessed enough to get to understand it early enough, so that way I set it up from now in a way that I don't get trapped. Because that I seen that before, that by not understanding these, you acquire success, then you go by the industry tendencies, but then you ended up in this trap where you never get to be free. You get to make money, a lot of money throughout your career, but you never get to be free, because the moment that you decide that you want to retire, man, it's difficult. You're like, I don't want to retire, because as soon as I do, I have all these things depending on me. So my quality of life is gonna decrease significantly. So that's powerful. I'm curious from you. Do you had a season in your life where your mindset shifted and then you got to understand this, or was like throughout your entire journey that little by little you understand it?
It was more little by little. Like, and it's funny because and we mentioned Aaron Novello in this podcast. I had this conversation with him multiple times, right? Uh, because I could have done what I did sooner, but I stayed in my W-2 job and I stayed there a little longer than I should have. But it was because of the mindset, right? This I saw that shift in that shift in my mindset as to really looking at getting equity in businesses and investing. That didn't come until later on. In the beginning, like I did it accidentally is the better word, right? Um,
Yeah,
and I stayed in my W-2 job mainly because of that promise that I was going to have a pension when I retired, right? So
yeah, yeah,
and I knew that, hey, as soon as I get there for the rest of my life, I'm going to have this pension, right? But so I didn't fully understand that in the very beginning in my life as I started
yeah,
this path. But and I told this story before, and I'm going to repeat it here. As a young Marine, I was we were forced to take a financial class, which for me was the biggest uh, um, plus, and it's really what shaped me uh, going on. And I took that class when I was 18 years old, and
yeah,
I remember in that class, like if it was yesterday, the gunny said, "Hey, you guys are Marines. You guys need to follow orders, or people die. And one of the orders that I'm giving you is that you have to do the following: you have to put 10% of your earnings into some type of investment vehicle, which for us was called the deferred comp, and you have to buy real estate." So
yeah,
as a young Marine, I'm like, shit. If he says this is what I need to do so that 20 years later I can be financially free, then this is what I'm going to do.
yeah.
There was
Yes.
there was no in my mind there was no doubt, there was no deviation. He said that's what
Mm-hmm.
you need to
Mm-hmm.
do, and if you do it, you're going to get X, and I did it, right? The problem today
Yeah.
is people think stuff.
Mm.
They overanalyze. They don't realize that to be financially free is a long game. And I
Yes.
played
Yes.
that long game. And thankfully, again, I'm going to give all the credit in the world to my wife, who is much more financially sound than I am, although she's not risk
Mm.
adverse,
Yeah.
which balanced me out because like
Yes.
risk for me is like a drug. Uh,
Yes. Yes.
so,
That's
so
funny. It's true.
yeah, so that combination of my ignorance, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
I call it ignorance because I had no idea that what I was doing
Yes.
was setting me up for success in the future. I just knew I
Yeah.
had to do it because I was told this is what you need to do. And then
Some.
again,
Some.
I give
Go
credit
ahead.
to my wife. She was our she paid the bills, because I was off, in the Marine Corps, just like now in life. I'm never home. I'm always traveling. I'm always doing acts.
Yeah.
So she was the CEO of our operations, on the ground in headquarters, like I like to call it, right?
Yes.
So that set me up for what I have today. And today, more than ever, I really realized number one, time is the most valuable asset we have. And number
Mm-hmm.
two, I'm not looking for a paycheck. I
Yes.
want cash flow. I want,
Yes.
so like, and you touched on it. I have equity in a lot of different businesses. Um, and every opportunity I can get, I will invest in something that I don't have to be physically there, but I'm going to get
Yeah.
something in return. Like I just
Yes.
mentioned, I
Love that.
started a social media company. That social media company, I am just the investor. I am, I'm part of the ownership, but I got a small piece of that ownership. But
Yes. Exactly.
but it brings me, my return on my investment is high enough, and it's where I want it to be, that I don't have to worry about it. So,
Yes, and you understand business. You understand business. Business needs sales, needs clients, and you understand the concept overall, regardless of the industry, and that's part of the value you bring. You're an investor, and that's the value that you bring. Now, your job is to find a good operator that understands the specifics of that industry, and that's how you can replicate. And literally now I'm finding myself in that process with my wife too, where we want to do the same thing that as you described, like as you did. That's why I love hanging out with you and Aaron too, because I get to learn from you guys and what you're doing. It's the freedom is in equity. People need to understand that.
right.
And a lot of people, they don't see it, because you touch on a lot of valuable stuff there. A lot of people, they don't see it for themselves, they see it for you. It's like, oh, I can see that working for you, or and they justify because you were lucky, or you this, you surround yourself with that, and blah blah blah. But the reality internally is they don't want to accept that. They don't want to put in the work that you have put in. That's the only reality. They don't want to take the risk that you took. So, and you also mentioned about the significant other. That's another thing that I've heard a long time ago from Mr. Wonderful, Shark Tank. The best business decision that you can make is the person that you marry. Look how she can
100%.
balance you out, and she can literally point out those things that you don't have awareness. The same thing with me and my wife. Right now, I'm finding myself, and I wasn't like this at all. I was super conservative, but not right now. I'm the one that is taking the fast decisions, the most risk, and she's like the more conservative. So we balance each other out. And sometimes, man, we have fights, we have disagreements, but that is what it's all about. Uh, Getting to understand each other and also point out stuff that the other person is not seeing. That's where the good balance is and the success is.
Yeah,
This
yeah.
this that was powerful. All of these powerful statements for sure.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. Let's we're gonna go ahead and wrap this up, and give me, like, for you personally, what goes, and you kind of mentioned that already, but I want to really nail you down, because I want to go back to you in a couple of years to see how you're doing with your goals. But for the future, give me one personal goal and one professional goal that you have.
Question.
Okay, so we're going to go ahead and wrap this up. So uh, I want I only have a few more questions, but this one is, for you personally, give me one personal goal and one business goal that you have for the next five, between now and the next 5 or 6 years.
Personal, I want to start a family. Me and my wife, that's for sure. That's the next step. I want kids. I've always been wanted to be a dad, so that's kind of like in the immediate future. And also, if I can add on the personal side, I'm finding myself wanting to give back more. Obviously, you know about the Guatemala mission trip. I'm investing more time in there. It's the one thing that I find that I've I have a calling for helping others. It's like uh, it's one of those things that keeps me grounded and also makes it more than for just doing stuff for myself. It gives a bigger purpose, and I think it's necessary, to some extent. And then business wise, I I still want to do real estate. I'm passionate about it. I still want to help agents grow, get to the next level. So my personal production in the next, I want to retire at some point for my personal production. I don't know, haven't decided yet when. Maybe 5, 10 years from now, agents helping agents grow their business through coaching, developing. Uh, that definitely see me doing for forever, for as much as I can. But at the same time, simultaneously to that, uh, my very long term goal and my retirement goal is have the freedom through equity, own businesses, either starting those my own or literally acquire existing businesses. Me and my wife are in the process of acquiring a lot of information on that, everything that you just said, and I might even call you from some advice. Uh, to we currently investing. We invest. We have a stock portfolio and things like that, but that's also long term.
Yeah, long term.
This
Yep.
is more for cash flow, immediate cash flow that can help with early retirement. So that's the deadlines I don't necessarily have. I feel that I'm too early to put some deadlines, but that's the end goal. Having freedom to get to do whatever I want, whenever I want it, from wherever I want it, with whoever I want it, for as long as I want it, uh, and not depend on anything or anybody. So, and that I'm realizing that is through ownership, ownership, owning something that can produce uh, some sort of cash flow or money back. So that's the goal.
I'm, be prepared because I'm going to be following up on a regular basis with you
Love
to
it.
make sure you're getting there. Um,
Yes, thank
Second
you.
to the last question, and that is, where do you see the future of real estate as it relates to real estate agents going?
Yes, love that question. Love that questions. By the way, ask around. I have the time. I'm enjoying this conversation. So, future of realtor. I think in all the conversations that I like, I'm the type of person that I hear all opinions and I just formulate myself. One of the things that I really like about Aaron, and that's why like I stick with him and his vision, is because I feel that a lot of the stuff that he says are truth, and one of the things that he's been repeating himself, also by acquiring knowledge and studying other people and talking conversations. Future real estate, 50%. When he says 50% of brokerages are gonna be cloud based in the next 10 years, I do believe that we're seeing it. It's inevitable. You have big companies. You have big EXP already with almost 100,000 agents. You have a couple other companies that are copying the concept and they have been successful because the concept works.
Right.
So because of that, it's just a matter of time to at least 50% being cloud based. So if you get to understand that, get yourself in the future. Cloud based means technology. Even the largest companies that have been around for 40, 50 years had to adapt to technology. I started with Keller Williams, one of the largest and oldest companies out there. And even when I was there 6, 7 years ago, they were trying to figure out uh, how to incorporate technology to their brokers because they were realizing that that was the missing part. You have nowadays real estate companies are more technology based than actually brokerages
Right.
because all paperwork and the platform itself it's very simple and once you integrate technology it allows you also to be up with the new generation. So that's the future. I see also the market shrinking. As things change, I could see people leaving more of the industry. I can see in the future more regulations when it comes to real estate because of everything going on and just society in general. So that will make the industry shrinking. If we have right now 3, 4 millions, I don't know how much it is, licensed real estate agents nationwide, then that's gonna shrink maybe to half of it, maybe 10 years ago, 10 years from now, because more regulations, more stuff, which it's opportunity. It's a smaller group of people who are gonna take advantage of the entire market. So that's what I see in the industry. Obviously, to be able to compete at that point, you have to be more skilled. You have to be more skilled. Like We some agents get paid equal as an attorney and a doctor, and we don't go through the studying process that a doctor and attorney goes. So it's just natural to understand that the market, the industry is going to require more. That to be able to get paid like those industry, we might be able to require to get similar skills when it comes to time and effort.
No, I agree, man. I agree. Developing those skills today are going to pay off tomorrow, hugely.
Yes.
So, the last question I have for you is, what advice would you give a brand new agent coming into the industry?
um, I recently, it's interesting that you ask because I recently posted a piece of content saying the three things that I wish I knew back when I first got my real estate license. The first one is number one was, well, I can't remember the order. I think it was quality coaching. I think I told you that I myself discovered or realized or saw the importance later. Quality coaching. And when you think about quality coaching, is don't think about longevity, think about production. Sometimes we come across people that says, I've been doing real estate 10 years, 20, 30 years. And we think, okay, person probably knows everything about the industry. No, just because you've been licensed for 10, 20, 30 years doesn't mean that you are or were great at it. And at the beginning of my career, when I was struggling, I was being coached with people that just put in the time, but not necessarily put in the work.
Right.
So understanding that difference in production is show me the numbers. How many houses do you sell in those 10 years, in those 20 years? Go into the nitty gritty of how many houses, because that's what's going to give you the experience. In the last 3 years, that is probably when I sold the most real estate in my entire 10-year career. It's when I acquire the most knowledge. Why? Because it's related to the numbers. If I only sell one or two houses in a year, I only have one or two house experience. If I sell 60 homes in a year, I engage in so many conversations, so many situations that taught me so much more. So it's production, no time. Quality coaching is number one. That's the second one is I remember the third one, which is but the third one is be intentional. We were talking about that. Don't confuse a movement for achievement. Just because you're putting the time, and the time can be invested into. You can easily spend 2 hours just designing a flyer.
Yeah.
No, I'd rather you go forget about the flyer and knock 100 doors in those 2 hours.
Yeah.
So it's you got to understand what are those income producing activities. What are those activities where your time is going to produce the income? Everything else can be leveraged, everything else can be learned, everything else can be developed later. So income producing activities, and be good and understand that part of our job is to be good and get great in learning what to say, how to say it, and say it as many times as possible. That's our job. Because again, if you don't understand that, then you're going back into time and longevity. No, no. Be good at what to say, how to say it, and say it as many times as possible. If we put ourselves in front of the same lead, and the lead asks us what is your commission, and I know exactly what to say, and you don't, and you haven't practiced, then I'm gonna convert that business, and you don't. It's as simple as that. And then the third one, I can't remember now. Man, I just did that piece of content the other day. But those two are essentials. Those two for sure.
Yeah. No.
Intentionality and quality coaching.
Phenomenal advice. I'm going to second what you said in terms of don't look at time, look at productivity. Because one of the
Yes.
things that drives me insane, especially in the last, I want to say in the last 3 or 4 years in the short term rental industry, is that you have all these people on social media that call themselves gurus. And when you really look at their business, they're only managing 3 or 4 properties. And they're like, and they're experts.
Yes.
You got to be kidding me, bro. And I
Yes.
learned
Yes.
that because, as you know, I manage hundreds of properties and hundreds of properties in different areas.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't compare my experience to someone that's managing 4 properties in one area. They may be
Exactly.
good in that specific area, but they're not. They're not. They
Yeah.
don't know what the market costs for in Florida, New York, Chicago. Um,
Exactly.
so when you're out there looking for an agent, and that agent tells you, "Oh, I've been an agent for 20 years." That's not the question they ask. The question you
Yes,
ask, in that
exactly.
20 years, what's your productivity? How many have you sold? And then the last thing
Yes,
I
it
want to
translates
second,
into any industry. Don't go to the doctor that has seen that just
close it again.
graduated. Well, you need the experience, but partner with somebody that is have the production so you can learn from their production with the numbers that they're putting in. But don't go to the doctor just graduate, want to go figure it out by themselves, and they only see two patients uh,
Right.
per week. You want to see the doctor to see hundreds because they've seen so many cases that they're more likely to identify the disease or whatever you're going through yourself.
Yeah, and then the last thing I wanna, and I'm gonna close with this. The second thing is that you mentioned that I think is very important, and this is why I think coaching is super important. Is practice, 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 practice. Right?
Yes,
Um, Brian, you mentioned the fact that like for example, in your group, one of the things that I love about your group, one of the things I love about Elite Builders is the role playing. I know
yes,
so many agents that tell me, "Oh, it's a waste of time." That agent, I know for
yeah,
sure, is not going to be successful in the industry because even the best agents in the industry practice role playing. They know what to say,
yeah,
when to say it, and how to say it.
exactly.
So
And going back to connecting it to everything, that's an example. Uh, I discovered the value of role playing also when I started coaching with Aaron. And then I signed up to role playing. I've been doing it for a couple of years straight every day, and I seen the conversion. I
yeah,
seen the conversations. How fluently I say stuff. So it's everything is tied up. A lot of truth we said in this call today.
yeah. So, Brian, I mean, can't tell you how much I appreciate you coming on. Um, this has been phenomenal. I mean, I can go on for hours. Usually, I want to cut this off within
Yes,
16
yes,
minutes, but we're already at an hour and 15 or 16 minutes. But only because I'm truly enjoying the conversation. A lot of stuff you mentioned is truly gold. Hopefully, my subscribers and the people watching got a lot of value out of this. If you have, do me a big favor. Don't forget to subscribe and definitely follow me on
yes,
Instagram. I'm going to have all of Brian's information in the description down below. So if you want to get a hold of him, if you're in the South Florida area specifically and you need a real estate agent or you want to be part of a phenomenal team, reach out to Brian. Brian, any closing
yes.
thoughts?
Man, just super grateful to be here and for you to consider me to be in the platform. I'm very appreciative just by the knowledge that I've acquired just by being surrounded you, man. You're somebody that definitely look up to because you are the way that you're setting up yourself. To be completely honest and transparent with you, it's the way that I want to set up myself in a lot of different ways. You're living the life, and I'm sure that you recognize that. If not, I want you to recognize that. You're traveling the world, you own your time, you have a family, a wife that supports you. Man, that's what this is about. That's what we do it for. So I look up to you and looking forward to grow with you and see you continue successful and blessing others.